Good afternoon, committee members. We are convening our 1 p.m. housing agenda. It's a reconvening. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that we need to abruptly end this hearing due to technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Tuesday, April 1st at 1 p.m. in room 225, and a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. On our agendas today is SCR 217, SR 193, and SCR 226 and SR 202. We will be continuing this hearing that we started on Tuesday, March 19, 2024, and we'll be hearing from members of the public who registered to give oral testimony for these measures, but didn't have the opportunity to speak on Tuesday. So first up, we have SCR 217 and SR 193. I don't think we have anyone more that signed up for testimony. So we'll go to SCR 226 and SR 202. I don't think we have anyone signed up, but we do have a person that we would like to ask questions to, and that is from Hawai'i. So Hawai'i, why don't you come and join us? Thanks for being here today. Oh yeah, actually before that, is there anyone else wishing to testify, Dean? Good. Dean's good. Okay. Welcome, Administrator. You want to introduce yourself?
Administrator James Browse from Hawai'i.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. I think this is a continuation from last time we met. I think you were unfortunately not here. I think some of your staff were a little hesitant to answer on your behalf, but I'm glad that you made it back. I know you were traveling to DC to help make sure that we get all of the federal funds and federal support necessary. So maybe you can run us through where we are at right now with NCS. I think this resolution really is all about a short-term to long-term housing strategy. Mm-hmm. I think a big part of that is drawing down non-congregate sheltering to go into more temporary but longer-term housing, and then our ultimate goal with HHFDC is permanent housing.
Yes.
Right. And so I think we just need to get a handle on where we're at right now on some of our numbers at the hotels of eligible and ineligibles.
So updates for this week, we are tracking, FEMA has given us a number of 434 as non-reimbursable in NCS. Of that 434, Hawai'i and our partners at the state agree that 163 have multiple issues that possibly could make them ineligible. For instance, insurance, people that have insurance. So we continue to work with that 163 population. From the time we started with FEMA, the number continually comes down as far as ineligible in NCS. So that's a real positive move that we're at 434 this week.
What is the total that we've deemed ineligible? Total that we're in NCS, but we potentially moved out, but we are on the hook to pay.
That number, we can get that number on.
Okay.
And because we work the each family, when they become eligible and we put them in the FEMA bucket, it retroactives their eligibility.
Right.
So we got to look at, okay, when did they move out? And it's a kind of a by day with, thousands of households.
Okay. So we're not sure on what that exact amount is.
No.
Okay. How many are, so the 434 though is still in NCS, right?
Yes.
But they are in the bucket of, is that pending? Pending?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's either a FEMA bucket,
right,
a state bucket, or gray.
Right.
These are still in the gray.
Okay. So do we still have folks in NCS that have been deemed ineligible, hard ineligible, and moved to the state bucket?
Right now, today, no, sir.
Okay.
We're not tracking anybody in our bucket that we agree with FEMA. Yes, this person we're taking care of.
Okay, go ahead.
So I know previously we had like 29 or 30 of the COFA. So now COFA is all eligible. Is
Yes.
that why there's zero, or is there
uh,
zero that are our state not live, state cost.
Yes. COFA would be one of those. The ones we were tracking maybe 3 weeks ago had different types of issues. So, we prioritized to move the ones that we agreed to. Maybe I want to say about 5 weeks ago, the number was maybe at 25. And we said, okay, get these 25 out of NCS and get them into the DHS program. So we've been prioritizing that list.
Wait, when they go to DHS, are they still FEMA eligible?
No.
So
FEMA,
these are, but who are the ones that you're sending to DHS that are totally not deemed not eligible?
not eligible for
FEMA,
the NCS
Yeah,
population. Yes.
yeah.
For NCS.
So those are, so you're moving NCS, the 29 or so COFA, they are deemed eligible by FEMA.
Yes, they'll become eligible once we get official word. And we anticipate we'll get that within the next week or so, that they now are eligible for all FEMA projects or
And
programs.
so they can stay or move out of the non-congregate services. What we're interested in is the ones that are not FEMA eligible.
Yes.
That are staying in the non-congregate services.
So
bucket.
yes, Senator. So right now today, from Haima's perspective, with FEMA, there is nobody in my bucket. There's 163 in the gray bucket.
Okay, so what is the total? So 163 are the
It's
ones
not
that are still
434?
pending, not 434.
Well, there's 434,
Right.
right? The 163 is in the gray bucket. The 127 is they're moving with FEMA. So we're
Wait, where did this
Wait.
127 come from?
so they're exiting from the NCS. So when I agree with FEMA, it's the 160 of the 434. I agree with FEMA that there's issues with 163 of them. The
Okay.
other 271, that's on them.
That's
they
on
eith- they-
who?
It is because of
On FEMA or?
on FEMA, no, on
Okay.
FEMA,
Okay.
on FEMA. And part of it is the difficulty we have with working the data with FEMA. So for example, almost of the 134, we're telling FEMA, no, the names that you're giving me, 85 of them already checked out of NCS. We're not even being billed for 86 of them. So there's a lot of analysis that the team has to do with the data that FEMA provides us.
Mhm.
I don't just move back if I can. So when we met before, you said that you have this joint housing task force. With FEMA, you folks, DHS, Red Cross, all together looking through each person that's still the survivor. And then you say, this one goes here, we're FEMA, not FEMA. Why can't that discussion have clarified all of this in terms of, I don't know, the data sets that you have? What is the problem in, just going, Joe, down.
So some of the issues would be verification of residency. So FEMA says, okay, not eligible, the team goes back and they have to work the eaches. Okay, let's go back, let's verify the residency. Okay, they were residents in the burn zone. Okay, put them in the FEMA bucket. So, and part of it is the data sets that FEMA has and updating, their system of record. So it's important that HAIMA and FEMA, we work together on leveling the bubbles with the data.
But it's been over 6 months, so there's no one data set that you work with, and it's kind of, it's only 400, right? So what's the problem in having one data set that you folks say, okay, we're on the same page with this guy, he's FEMA, he's not. we have to get insurance from this guy, go and get the insurance and then come back. And then the next meeting, we talk about that guy and say, is he in or out? I
Yes.
mean, that's not a process that you folks follow.
Oh, no, we are. We
So
are.
why
So,
is it taking so long?
so that's one of the issues that I brought up with the administrator for FEMA is that the data sharing between agencies, we got to do a better job. It's not impacting us now. It's not going to help us now. But moving forward, they got to do a better job on how we share the data. So American Red Cross has their data that they collect, and they're keeping track of, who checks into NCS. They're tracking the NCS folks. FEMA has theirs, and they're tracking, okay, who registered, and they go through this data match of registering. And then now we got to take Red Cross's data and FEMA's data and now cross-reference. And then there's issues between what they're doing. So now, right now, today, I think our team has done such a good job getting the data set and leveling the bubbles for us on data that HOU's data is probably the most accurate because we're pulling from FEMA's and we're pulling from
But I
Red
guess,
Cross.
but I don't understand, and correct me, you're the guy in charge, right? You're the state coordinator. So why can't you get FEMA and our American Red Cross, DHS together and say, this is the list we have. Now we have 434 people. Let's go one by one. And we're not leaving this room until we know who's the one that we need information from. You come back next week and tell me where it is. Why can't that be done? Because it seems it's going to drag on, and that's more the problem than they're eligible, ineligible.
Yeah, so the team's been doing that
So how come it's
from day
taking so
one.
long?
It's just a
You have to
tedious
be
process. Yeah,
better pusher on getting it together.
yeah. So the team does that constantly. Sitting down, doing the matches between Red Cross's data and FEMA's data, and then when we sit down.
I still understand. Okay, so if we have Jim Barrows.
Yep.
He is on everybody's list. So HOU says, this guy, is he eligible or not, or his family eligible or not? And they say insurance, okay. What's lacking on HOU's list is lacking insurance. I want to know next week if he has or he doesn't have insurance. You go to the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. Why is it that the different data sets that don't talk to each other anyway
Right.
can't come together in you?
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're actually doing on the ground. But because this is the number FEMA gave me, right? 434. Their system takes a while for it to update. And we finally got to the point where I can take Red Cross and what they're doing with the survivors on the ground. They'll talk to them every 96 hours, come back, get that information in this joint task force, and then now update it and tell FEMA, here's the updates. Go into your system and update it so that this is a more accurate number from FEMA.
Okay, so the question I have is, so you meet and you say, okay, now we've got the information. This guy, Jim, he's eligible. And FEMA, he's eligible. So FEMA will take a week or 2 weeks or whatever to update their data system. But meanwhile, we know he's eligible.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So that number should be dropping then as you go through, or being clear that it's a FEMA eligible or ineligible. Right?
Yes.
So do we have that one from your committee?
What we agree on,
Yeah.
it's the 163.
So,
Right.
and that,
Is what?
Is right now, we're saying 163 potentially is on our dime, is on the state, the 163 households. But again, they're in the gray bucket. It's this constant back and forth with FEMA.
okay. Oh, another question I have then. So this 163, because it's costing us $1 million, well, now less because you have fewer people, but they're costing us a lot staying in the non-congregate. So if we move them to where we know there's something cheaper, and we move them, and later you find that this guy is FEMA eligible, that it does the same thing that you do with the condos that you do with
Yes.
COFA, right? They'll go back.
Yes.
So why don't we move the 163 now without waiting for it to be deemed eligible, ineligible, so that we get them all out of the hotels? the
Yes,
cost-
Senator, that's what the team's doing, and that's they're prioritizing. So we started with those that we agree with FEMA that this person is ineligible. We agree, the state, federal government, we agree, we're gonna move this, and then DHS, using their programs, we move them out of the hotels. So this is the priority population.
So
We do want to move them out of the hotels, get them into something else, but continue to have those conversations with FEMA, continue to get them out of this gray bucket into FEMA's
Right, so
bucket.
can't you move all the 163 out tomorrow and say, I mean, if you have spaces, but move them all out? Because whether they're ineligible today or tomorrow, or they're eligible, if they become eligible tomorrow, they'll backtrack to when they were,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So why can't you just move the 163 out?
Availability of resources that are out there.
So there's no place cheaper than the hotels.
They're working that piece. DHS.
Well,
their
DHS said
program.
last week that you're the hang-up. They're waiting for you to transmit the names to them so that they can house these people.
Really? Okay,
So they're waiting for the names
Really?
to
Just give them the
place
names.
them. So that's what they said
Okay.
they're waiting for. So
Okay.
we're just trying to piece everything together.
okay.
But you're saying that that's not true. You've given them the names, and now you're waiting on DHS.
For availability of space to come available. Yes, they will get the 163 names this afternoon.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that Haima was the hang up.
To clarify that, if you gave them all 163 names, then it's on DHS to find them, and they are the ones to look for it. It's off of the ARC contract. It's off of the hotels.
Yes,
Well,
Yes.
that solves a big problem.
yeah. So we as things were becoming available, we prioritize the population in NCS. Give that prioritization list to DHS to move these folks out of hotels.
Okay, but the just a follow-up. So the 163, they may or may not be FEMA eligible, but they are in hotel rooms that they should vacate because of the cost to the state if they're ineligible. But in the meantime, you can move all 163 out, and it's on DHS to find them housing.
Yes.
Okay,
But who is checking to see what kind of insurance do they have? Because I'm sure if they're not eligible for FEMA in this 163, it sounds like they may have money,
Mhm.
right? So whose responsibility is to check for that?
So we do know that of the 163, we're tracking 57 have issues with insurance.
so meaning
So
they have insurance.
They have some type of insurance. What we spoke with DHS is get them out of hotels and let's resolve their insurance issue while they're not in hotels. And then what's the mechanism for the insurance with NCS? And that's a constant question that I keep asking FEMA, because FEMA tells me they have insurance, they're not eligible. This number has gone down. We're at 57 today. I constantly ask FEMA, okay, what's the mechanism for the insurance? What do you want me to do with this survivor who you telling me has insurance? Do you collect it? Do I collect it? Does a hotel collect it? How do we want to handle it? I haven't gotten an answer yet. So what?
Okay, so the ones with insurance, they're not automatically out. They still have, it may be partial or whatever, and then we will pick up the difference, or if they have insurance and they're on their own.
Yes, that's a good
Yeah.
question that we continue to ask FEMA. So, for example, FEMA came to me and said, this person has $1 million policy. I said, that's amazing. What do you want us to do with it? Do I collect the million? Does he pay the hotel? Do they give you the money? What's the mechanism? There is nothing in place at this time.
So these people with $1 million insurance policy staying in NCS and on our dime.
Right now, yes.
So do you have a policy?
That's why we're focusing on the insurance piece, on how do we handle that insurance, if that person that potentially has $1 million policy. Do we bill them for the NCS stay? So that hasn't been answered.
But shouldn't the state have a policy though, independent of FEMA?
Yeah.
If we're gonna keep housing them, shouldn't the state have a policy on what we're gonna do with insurance, folks?
Yes.
Because what's, they have the resources, it's just they're choosing not to use it.
So some of the survivors do have that ALE insurance. Because we're seeing NCS as a emergency sheltering program. They're holding on to the insurance for the next phase of a rental or a direct lease. And that's where the survivor wants to use the insurance, right? So I have the insurance policy. I'm going to hold on to it because I don't know what's going to happen when I leave the hotel. I need that resource to pay for my rent or pay for a lease outside of the hotel. What FEMA is saying is, no, you use that now, and then you become eligible. So even if your policy is only $1,000 overall, we take the $1,000, there's still going to be a cost for that stay in the hotel.
So going back to Senator Hashimoto, why don't you have a policy so that in fact you use your policy first, and then if you deplete that, then you become FEMA eligible, so that they're clear they got to use that insurance now, or if they don't use it now, they're not eligible for either the state or the FEMA. I mean, why isn't there some policy regarding that? Because otherwise you've got some people holding out and we're paying for them when they can't afford to get support.
Yeah, and from my perspective right now with the insurance, FEMA says they're ineligible for NCS. That's the battle we're having with them on the insurance piece, that the survivor wants to use their insurance for the next phase, for the temporary housing, not the sheltering piece. And so I'm trying to push FEMA in that direction, that instead of having the survivor pay for the sheltering at the hotel, let them use their insurance for the next temporary housing or long-term housing.
But if FEMA is not accepting that, then we're paying for them or they hold out for the next phase. So the problem is right now, the state's bill is really high because we're paying for them when they have support to do that. So I guess the question is, what is your policy? So if you're pushing FEMA to allow them to hold on to it and still make them eligible, that's one thing, but it doesn't seem like FEMA's going to change their rules to say, okay, they're now eligible because they're holding out for the next phase. I mean, has that discussion been made? And if they're saying, no, wait, then you need a policy.
Yes.
And they're saying, no, wait, right? Yes, they're saying no, wait.
They're saying no right now. Yes.
But
yes.
What makes you think they're going to say no, yes tomorrow?
We keep hounding them. So the other one that we're pushing up is that we want a decision by the FEMA headquarters to answer the question on insurance.
And when was that submitted?
Maybe 2 weeks ago. And again, something that in DC, I had conversations with the administrator too, that the insurance piece is still a pitfall for the state.
So it's reasonable for us to require of you to have a policy on eligibility based on insurance.
Okay.
And to have some timeline on it, or else this keeps on going on and on. And I think that we need to get clear guidance on what we are paying for and making sure that we're paying for what we need to pay for and not just allowing it because we don't have the data, or, you know, we're letting it go because we think maybe FEMA will come through with a different answer.
Okay.
We can do that. I'd like to see that covered.
Yeah. So what are you doing with the 271 then? So is the 271 on DHS's list to move out? So that it's 163 and the 271 that gets us to 434, right? So the 271 that's left, when you get rid of the 163, what's going on with these guys?
So of the 271, 146 are eligible for FEMA lease or direct lease. 39 have other solution sets. Households will be exiting on their own, and they found rentals on their own. So they're not asking for any assistance.
Okay, so the 271, they're
That's
FEMA
right.
eligible then.
Yeah.
So 434 is what is left in NCS total.
No.
No?
Sorry.
Minus the 100, yeah.
The 434 is what FEMA is telling us. This is in your bucket, state of Hawaii,
Okay.
right? We're going back to them with the 146. These are people that we're saying are eligible
The
for
163? Is it 146 or 163?
Sorry, so we break it down this way. This is the red.
Okay.
This is the 163.
Okay.
Right. And then the 271. Of the 271, 39 says, hey, we're good.
Okay.
We found a rental, we're moving on.
Okay.
146, they're eligible for direct lease. So these we're saying
Are FEMA.
no, they're FEMA.
Okay.
And then 86, we're saying because of the data mix up, there's 86 that not even in NCS at this time with FEMA. So we're focusing on the 163 to get them to DHS. So that's the priority to move out of NCS.
So wait,
Once-
what is the 86 again?
They checked out of
So they don't
NCS.
need help? They
No,
don't.
no.
So they checked out of
NCS. Yes, and another 39 saying we have a solution set. We're moving.
Okay. Okay. So how much is left in NCS then? That's our responsibility. 100% potentially.
Right now, today,
Right.
in NCS at 100%, I agree with FEMA.
No,
No,
or
just the
potentially
total.
and potentially.
question
Because
was
if you take out the FEMA
Okay.
eligibles, because we know
Other
we'll get
solutions.
we're paying 10% for those.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about us potentially what we have to pay 100%.
that would be
for.
the 163.
Okay,
That's
so
the
163 is what's left in NCS that is 100% on us.
Potentially,
question.
Yeah.
question.
Potentially.
potentially
Okay.
on us.
Okay. That's actually not bad. Maybe you should have started with that.
Yeah, because that we can deal with, because then that brings down your amount that you're paying out, right?
Yes,
So you're paying only for 163 people, basically.
yes. That, like I said earlier, in my strategy is 163 today. Yes, we're paying. Eventually, we agree with FEMA, and then we're not paying at all.
So,
So when
yeah,
it's all said and done, and we do this PA project, that's where that's where the numbers will be. For example, today's Thursday. How many people were in NCS? How many people were FEMA eligible? How many people were state? And by the time we come to do the packet, we want the 163 to be either eligible or whole.
so just going back again, so the 163, this is the task force is looking at it every day and saying, we agree, don't agree, go find if they have insurance. So DHS is then taking that list. So when you give them the 163, they will start looking for places to get them out of the hotels.
Yes.
So So looking at the timeline, you told us for sure April 10th was in, but we've heard no cost extension to July. So, but if you're doing this process, it sounds like a very good process to get it done in a month, right? Because you need,
Well, April 10th is when this current NCS extension ends. We asked for an extension with FEMA so that we can extend NCS program maybe another 90 days.
yeah.
Well,
But you're gonna move 163 out, so we don't care if you extend, as long as they move them out of the non-congregate services.
yes, yes,
Right away,
yes. So
regardless of whether eligible or not eligible, they move out of it.
the priority is the 163, yes.
But the second part of it though is there's still FEMA eligible folks that are still there that FEMA needs to figure out what to do with, right?
Yes.
And how many people is that?
I can get you that number.
Okay.
Mhm. That's a 271 figure you gave us?
No, no, no.
Different.
So yeah, it's a much larger number.
Okay. So at this point, we have to keep NCS open because of more on FEMA side too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So right now there's 79 households that are FEMA eligible, that didn't pass the background check or the credit check. So those 79 households will eventually move into the Kilohana site that FEMA will build. So the 169 units that will be built for Kilohana, the 79 that are in the hotel currently, that's where they'll be placed.
But from a state perspective,
Yeah.
we got to pay up front. So maybe those are the type of folks that once we try and bring down NCS, that they go to the TSA program then, right? The FEMA TSA program.
We're talking with FEMA about the TSA program because it's we will continue to
Because at the end of the day, we don't want to pay the 100% up front, waiting for the 90% reimbursement that we get maybe in 5 years, right?
So part of the NCS program too is that we put in as a PA project, a public assistance project, and we expedite it. So we're getting federal monies that got pushed. They push us. They look at the overall project, and that's where the the misunderstanding of that we're paying $1,000 a day.
Right.
That's not true, but that was the estimates that we put in to open the project. That it would be $1,000 a day. That's really the estimate. That's not what we're paying. But we opened the project with the amount of people that we have, $1,000 a day. Here's a dollar amount for a PA project. We expedited that. What FEMA does is they look at it and they gave us push down 50% of what the project would be. So it's not a full 90% reimbursement. Some federal dollars have been pushed to the state to support NCS.
So how much is that estimate that they pushed down?
I would have to get with our budget folks on exactly how much was pushed down. But we can get that dollar amount. But
Ballpark.
I
heard 300. Is that a ballpark? 300 mil.
The state has available to it 300 million. Yeah,
300
that federal monies that they can draw down on. Not all of it was NCS. Some of it was NCS. Yes.
How of the 300? How much do you think was NCS? 200.
Maybe half. Maybe a little bit more than half.
150 million.
Yeah.
So that's cash in our hand.
Yes.
That we've drawn down.
Yes.
Because you previously stated that all the payments to NCS as of a certain date were from Fed funds. None of the state funds were used.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
So if you take all these people out of the NCS, does the Red Cross give you the balance back of that contract?
Oh no, so the contract it's like a credit card limit. So we did sign the contract. but it's not to exceed amount,
Okay.
right? So we haven't given them any money. They bill us and we pay the Red Cross. And we get the bill for the Red Cross. They draw down on the federal funds to pay the Red Cross.
So this as of 2 weeks ago, the 205,470,000 some odd change, is what you've paid for the last 6 months.
Mhm.
So you have another almost 300 mil then still sitting in the bank.
What do you think? Is it just to give us an understanding, how much more are we going to pay out?
For the
Right. So
163.
as of last 2 weeks ago, you gave us a 205
205.
figure.
Mhm.
How much more are we expecting?
For the 163, right?
Well, I
No,
guess
no,
just
for
in
the
general,
overall
because
bill.
I don't know, are you lagging a
Right.
month, 2 months, right? In back payments, right?
Oh no,
Right.
for Red Cross, we're
Correct.
not. Yeah, we're current.
Okay,
with our
current.
payments.
So the 205 takes us through, did it say when it took us
Yeah,
through?
well, this was paid up to March 15th.
March
so-
15th. So
Right.
that's pretty current as of March
Yes.
15th.
Yes,
So there's a ways to go to get to the 5 then.
yes.
Okay. And you're pretty comfortable with only 163. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's not much more than that.
And the team, they are decompressing the
Right.
NCS. As of this morning, it was about 96. We moved out
Okay.
in a week. The target has always been, the governor asked us to move 300 a week. We haven't gotten to that. We get to, I think the highest we had was about 150 something in 1 week period. This week we'll get about low 100 by the end of the week, moved out of NCS. So we're constantly moving
So
these
you actually
people.
move everybody then if you move 150 a week by next week.
Yeah. Oh, so this is
DHS comes through.
so this is both FEMA solution set and state solution set. As is that that 100
So
households.
the inventory is there apparently for moving them out. It's just DHS just needs your list for the 160.
Okay.
Today.
Yeah.
Okay, so at least what ballpark we may not exceed 300 mil, let's say, in terms of NCS. I think that would be an accurate statement.
Uh,
Well, I guess let me put it this way: we're not going to get to the 500 mil.
no.
Okay,
Right now, it doesn't look like we'll get to the 500.
okay,
With-
that's good news.
With the decompression,
Yeah.
with the right now, with the extension in April, we the last extension we stopped feeding in the condos because they could feed themselves. In April, we'll
Mm.
kind of reduce the meals that are provided in the hotels. So that's cost sharing again. So as we decompress and we reduce the meal, that'll bring that cost down. So
Okay.
I don't anticipate us getting to the credit limit of 500.
Okay,
What
good.
are you going to do with the money you save?
Get a new HOU headquarters.
Well, I guess of the 150 million that you pulled down, though, if your current costs are 205, do you feel that we might have to return any money to the federal government? Because so when you say it's a PA project and they're fronting you the money, what does that exactly mean to us?
They're only fronting a percentage of it.
Okay.
So we'll have to go back.
But then if you tremendously come, what you end up way under costs, though, how does that work?
We'll just adjust the PA project. So because they're only giving us a percentage of it. There's no way what we got so far is
Right.
going to pay for the entire project. So we'll draw.
So from a
more
cash flow
money.
perspective, it potentially could be we cash flow, we're okay.
Yes.
We're not even expending any state funds
Yes.
on NCS.
Yes.
The 500 million is our money.
No.
Is
So the
it
500
also-
million is a credit.
It's a contract encumbrance.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
I mean,
it
who's
is.
paying for that contract? I mean, when you take out the 205 to Red Cross, That was state money paying for that or federal money? Paying?
No, federal money's been paying the Red Cross. But we had to encumber the 500.
Okay, so all-
Fronting, they
so all of
fronted the
that-
money.
okay, all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are you, so how are we recognizing the 150 million that came in then? Is that been recognized somewhere in the financial plan or you're not aware? That's a BNF question.
Yeah, BNF and Department of Defense.
Okay.
ASO.
Okay. Okay. Can you talk to us about the next phase then, about where, for how much you know with discussions with FEMA on those, you said what, there's 79 that didn't pass the background check. So I know there is one site on the state lands, the villages of Leali'i lands, that they've committed to FEMA, that is, to moving forward. So that's moving forward, correct?
Yes.
And that's anticipated when to be completed?
I think they'll start to break ground or the design is completed. So FEMA saying the design's complete. They'll start work on the land itself. I want to say by the end of April.
Okay.
But when I talked to the FCO this morning, they're inches away from signing the lease and getting the land itself.
Okay.
And where is it for? Where is it?
The Kilohana site.
Okay.
And they're still in negotiations with Ka'anapali 2020.
Okay, so that's
and that
still
lease.
moving then, potentially.
Yes.
So how much for each site? Do you remember?
For Kilohana 2020, I do not know
Okay.
the number.
Okay. But those are the only two potential commitments that are on the table that we know of right
For
now.
FEMA. Yes.
Okay.
And you don't know the units, number of units for each that they're committing to building?
They're committed to 169 at Kilohana. Ka'anapali 2020, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it's potential commitment to Ka'anapali 2020.
Right. That's been pending for a little while, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the April 10th contract, so that is the anticipation to with the Red Cross, is that anticipated to be extended then, from what we hear from the governor?
Yes.
Through, I think, what, June 30th is what it sounded like?
Yes.
So that's confirmed. No cost contract, no cost escalations, right? Because based on your conversation, it sounds like we'll fit it within the
Yes.
500 million. Okay. And the goal is at least to get all the state people out way in advance of that
Yes.
date, right? And maybe just the FEMA folks are left.
Yes.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week. And then you're continuing to look into the TSA program of the remaining FEMA folks.
Yes.
Okay. So where are you pivoting from there then? What is HAIMA's role once you move out all the state folks?
So with HAIMA, once we decompressed NCS and the sheltering, then the housing piece goes to recovery. The only other two real big missions that HAIMA would be a part of is ensuring that the degree mission by the Corps of Engineers is done. And then because FEMA would build temporary housing, we have a nexus to that too. So those are the three missions that HAIMA still has some responsibility to, is a temporary houses with FEMA, debris cleanup, and then the congregate sheltering, the non-congregate sheltering.
So what's the commitment of FEMA for the temporary housing? I mean, what do you have sort of an MOA, or this is what you're gonna do, and this is when we leave? Any kind of commitment like that with FEMA on the temporary housing?
It's the commitment we have with FEMA is through the mission assignment
Which is?
process that we sit down with them. Everything that we did with them was a mission assignment, and this was a direct federal assistance through FEMA for the temporary housing. So we don't have a MOU with them, but it's through the mission assignment.
And that hasn't been done yet.
Oh no,
So what is the specifics of the mission assignment?
I can go look and get you the
It would be,
specifics. Yeah.
helpful to see what they're responsible for. before, right?
Okay.
Does it have, the mission assignment is they're responsible for this, the state is responsible for this, or it's all on what FEMA is going to do?
The FEMA, yeah, what federal government,
And that's 100% on them, right?
yes,
There's no state match.
yes.
Okay, so is HAIMA concerned about in negotiations with FEMA for the folks that don't qualify for direct lease, but get rental assistance instead? And if that rental assistance is sufficient in the West Maui market, is that a concern of HAIMA?
Yes, and we'll constantly have that discussion with them. And, you know, the governor agreed to have FEMA come in and do a study for the economic impacts of the federal government programs in West Maui. And that's one of the talking points for, I think, everybody in the state is if you come in FEMA and you raise the market, the dollar amount, what happens when you guys leave? And what happens to West Maui? So that's why we're kind of pushing and with the team that came in to do the research. And I can see FEMA's perspective was they're saying, hey, there's enough housing. We don't need to build anything because there is housing out there that they'll use.
It's just not available.
It's not available and it's not in West Maui. There's some is in West Maui. So we're saying because we'll build 169, we'll have you know, Joe Campos and they'll build that site with 450. If and when FEMA does the Kilohana, and then if there's another project, the commitment to build homes in West Maui so that people can move back to that side. So we'll constantly have that conversation with them, even with the researchers that came in.
So are they helping with the, I know they're taking the debris out of small, but are they committed to doing any help in the helping to raise the houses back up, or who does that? It's all on private.
Yeah, the private owner, the
Not
landowner.
They're just clearing the land.
Yes.
So has there any been discussions on FEMA increasing their rent assistance? Because just for some context, my understanding is, you know, I think the direct lease, not everyone's going to qualify for the direct lease program, right? And so then you would actually qualify just for rental assistance. But my understanding is there's not enough money. FEMA's not giving people enough money in the rental assistance program. So potentially the state has to subsidize that rental assistance for FEMA eligible folks to make them or allow them to find homes wherever they're looking on Maui. So what concerned me was that we're having to the state has to subsidize through, you know, it could be philanthropy, but nevertheless it's taking away from, you know, other rebuild efforts for someone that's FEMA eligible. Have you heard that problem?
No. Well, I'll ask though. I'm not trying.
Okay. Maybe that's the conversation with CNHA because they were the ones that were sharing with me that they feel that's a problem.
Okay.
Because my understanding was, you know, you just are FEMA eligible and they'll do a direct lease.
Yeah.
But apparently I was then told, no, there's a bifurcation. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told there's a bifurcation of only certain people qualify for direct lease. And if you don't qualify for direct lease, you're going to be put into the rental assistance pool.
Yes.
But the rental assistance pool wasn't rich enough to, you know, pay for rents throughout Maui. So that's what was concerning me.
Okay.
And so CNHA apparently is then subsidizing those FEMA eligible folks, which I said, I think FEMA should just be paying for, they should be raising that rental assistance so that we can save that money for other things.
So I'll follow.
Okay, thank you.
Just going back to the study that you're talking about, isn't it kind of late if they're doing the study and saying, oh, you folks were paying for the rent, and so you were raising the market rates so that the short-term rental owners were saying, I'm going to wait for FEMA to pay rather than getting people into housing the state was willing to pay at the foreign market. So is there anything going on just, again, another policy on how we work with FEMA, and that FEMA comes in, so they come into an area, they should actually look at what the market rate is, so that they don't raise it above the market, so that it's a problem when they leave.
Yeah.
Or we can't even get available housing because it's so high and they wait for FEMA.
No, so they come in and look at market rates and they look at where the market is. And
'Cause
then,
apparently that's been a problem,
Mhm.
is that they're so much higher than what the state can pay. Maybe it's not market, maybe it's what the state can pay,
Mhm.
and then having it comparable, because that's what we're assisting on.
okay,
That, is there any way that you can look at that sooner than later?
Okay, well, I think, at least you gave us a good breakdown of where we're at from the HAIMA perspective. Hopefully we can figure this out with DHS. They seemed ready to go. So I'm just sharing what they shared last week. They're
Alright.
like, they seemed like they had their stuff under control, which is a good thing. And so if we can just close that gap, I think that would be great. And I think we just got to watch on where that 163 goes. I think that's a very manageable number. And I think the 205 is it could be worse, I think. And then we'll kind of go from there. You have any last comments?
Yeah, just the last question, since Dean has been waiting so patiently to be questioned. Is what is the hand? I know we talked about this before, the handoff, but how are you working with the state? I know when HAIMA will go when the responsibility for the recovery part is gone, but this handoff to the longer term commitment for the housing for the survivors, but because most of them are renters.
Mhm.
So how is that kind of the task force working on that? Are you working with the housing task force so that there is kind of more of a warm handoff than just you leave and there's a gap?
Yeah, so we've been working with Luke and that long-term recovery team, working that transition piece. Yeah, so it's not one of those, okay, you're out of the hotel, you're done. Because DHS will have their disaster case management that will help the survivor through the process. So we're working with, DHS has been a great partner from day one. So we'll close the loop, but it's their disaster case management that will help the survivor through the different phases. And as far as the state agencies, we're all kind of coordinating as we move into recovery, that the long-term recovery piece will come from Luke and his team.
So is it possible in this reso, at least to get you guys working together on a plan? Is what is that transition and being able to work with Luke and work with HHFTC and HPHA, whatever the housing task force is, so that we have a plan that we can say, okay, we know this is the next step. We've got some policies you have to deal with on the current survivors, but then as they move to the next phase, whether they're renters or they're condo owners or they're single family dwelling owners, what is the plan for these, like buckets of people that
Yes.
you have to deal with? If we can have a plan of what you guys plan on doing for the long term.
Maybe that's the Dean question too.
Yeah, do come. Since you've been waiting patiently, I don't want you to feel left out. But how are you coordinating so that?
Maybe just introduce yourself real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Demon Economy, Executive Director, Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation. So yes, there has been a lot of collaboration, particularly with DHS. For example, for Hawai'i, we just closed today. So as of today, Hawai'i, yes. The state owns a hotel now.
Really?
So we are working now to prepare the facility for survivors. We'll be working closely with DHS, who is working closely with HAIMA on the population that will be moving into.
Hey, we found the place for the
Yeah.
163.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good, right? Okay.
Yes,
So how many units? I mean, how many
it's
rooms?
175
Oh, look at that.
rooms. So it's they're mainly guest rooms also, just hotel rooms. I think there are 27 that have either a kitchen or kitchenette.
But there's a place to cook downstairs, right? You could bring.
There is
in
a commercial
somebody to-
kitchen, so it's possible that a vendor could be hired to provide food service at additional cost though.
And then they can pay, they can come in and it's like going to a cafeteria.
Yeah, they could provide a meal plan for survivors.
How much is needed for Hagai to get it retrofitted for use?
The management contract is for roughly $500,000 per month. And within that budget, there are funds for safety improvements and whatnot to improve the facility. So that's what's being used now for the immediate need. We're not doing any major repairs. It's just things that need to be
Just to
done.
keep it temporary.
Deferred maintenance issues, yes.
So what is the timeline on when it will be open for business?
Our target is May 1st. So about a month.
And it's in pretty good condition,
Fairly good condition. There are some deferred maintenance issues.
major.
Well, some major things are like the elevators need to be replaced at some point, but the facility can be used now with just one elevator. But at some point, yes, we will have to, fix the other elevator.
So this is temporary, but then what happens after temporary?
So simultaneous to acquiring the property, the county of Maui also accepted a lease, but they don't take possession until next year because they don't have capacity right now to maintain the facility. So we'll be working with them to help them develop an RFP to find a developer who will convert the entire facility to permanent teacher and workforce rental housing. So that developer will undertake the improvements to, convert the guest rooms into apartments.
And they would have kitchen, everything. Would be like
Everything will have kitchens. The developer can propose the mix, whether it's studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units. And they'll be responsible for coming up with a financing plan to pay for the conversion.
So the state will still own the land, but will lease it to the county that will get a vendor or a management company to.
That's correct.
That's to happen in 2020.
Oh, well, the RFP will go out later this year. The developer will be selected either this year or next year. But as long as the facility is needed for survivors, it's going to be available.
Oh, okay, so it'll be there as long as we need the survivors to stay there for temporary.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys. We're
Thank
gonna
you
take
so
a quick
much.
recess to get quorum. (1:00) reconvening SCR 217 SR 193, urging the Federal Emergency Management Agency to utilize funds for non-congregate housing for infrastructure and development needs for affordable rental housing. Recommendation is to pass out as is. Chair, for the vote.
SCR 217 and SR 193, recommendation pass unamended. Chair Chang, aye. Vice Chair Hashimoto.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
And Senators Aquino and Awa are excused. The recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next up is SCR 226 and SR 202, requesting the governor in collaboration with the County of Maui to provide a clear strategy for addressing the short and long-term housing needs for residents displaced by the August 2023 Maui wildfires. Recommendation is to pass this as is as well. Chair, for the vote.
So for SCR 226 and SR 202, recommendation is to pass unamended. Chair Chang, aye. Vice Chair Hashimoto.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
And Senators Aquino and Awa are excused. The recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned.